Hey there, and welcome. You ever look at a brilliant product and just think, wow, how on earth did they come up with that? We have this tendency to treat creativity like it's some kind of magic, right? A lightning strike of pure genius. But what if it's not? What if it's actually a method, a process that anyone, and I mean anyone, can learn and use? Well, today we're going to pull back that curtain and show you the real method behind all that magic.
So let's just jump right in with the big question. Are great designers born with some special gift? Or are they made through practice and, a solid process? There's this common myth that you either have it or you don't. But honestly, the reality of great design tells a completely different story.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to redefine what creativity even means. Then, we'll look at the two different mindsets that great designers use. After that, we'll dig into where ideas actually come from, walk through a super practical checklist for innovation, and finally, we'll figure out how a simple idea transforms into a truly high-quality product.
Okay, first things first, we really need to break down a pretty common myth. Let's just get rid of this idea that creativity is some mysterious, untouchable art form. It's really time to reframe how we think about the whole thing. This definition of creativity is absolutely key. See, in the world of design, it's not about staring at a blank canvas and waiting for inspiration to strike. It's all about methodical reasoning. It's about solving problems, a focused effort to come up with solutions that genuinely make life better for people.
And innovation? Well, that's not about inventing something completely out of thin air either. It's almost always an iterative process. It's about looking at what's already out there and asking that simple question, how can we build on this? How can we make it better? So the big takeaway here is that it's all about evolution, not some spontaneous creation.
Now, to make all this a bit more concrete, we're going to follow an amazing case study through this whole explainer, the Facett modular hearing aid. This thing is an award-winning design, and it perfectly shows these concepts at work in the real world. So keep an eye on it as we go.
So now that we've kind of redefined creativity as a process, let's dive inside the designer's mind. We're going to explore the two key ways of thinking that really drive that whole process forward.
So on one side of the coin, you've got intuitive design. This is that gut feeling, the personal sense of what just feels right. And on the other side, you have systematic design, which is a much more deliberate, methodical, step-by-step approach. For a long, long time, the design world kind of pitted these against each other. It was like you had to choose a camp. Were you the free-thinking artist or the logical engineer? But here's the secret. It's a false choice. The best, most successful designers don't pick a side. They master the ability to switch back and forth between both modes. They know exactly when to feel and when to analyze. It's this balance, this kind of dance between intuition and logic that really leads to breakthrough work.
Okay, so we know creativity is a process that balances intuition and systems. But where does that process even begin? I mean, where do those initial sparks of inspiration actually come from? Let's get practical.
Inspiration is literally everywhere if you just know where to look. It can be sparked by an event or a personal need that you have, or, and this is a really big one, just plain old frustration with a product that doesn't work the way it should. Inspiration can come from art, the environment, what's happening in the market, or even just patterns you find in nature. The key is just to keep your eyes and your mind open to it all. This is such a great example of how this works. David Handley saw a sculpture park over in Prague and had an idea, but he didn't just copy it. He took the core concept and completely transformed it to fit a new, uniquely Australian context, the beach. See? He built upon an idea that was already there.
Inspiration can also be way more abstract. The fashion designer Colette Dinnigan wasn't inspired by another piece of clothing, but by a feeling, the faded grandeur of yesteryear. This just goes to show how a mood or an abstract thought can be the starting point for a very real, tangible collection of products. And let's bring it right back to our case study. The beautiful, almost jewel-like shape of the Facett hearing aid wasn't inspired by looking at other medical devices. No way. It was inspired by the crystal forms of minerals in a museum. This design choice was all about shifting hearing aids from being a symbol of disability to an object of desirability. Pretty cool, huh? So you've got an idea sparked by some kind of inspiration. What's next? I mean, how do you even know if it's a good one? And how do you start to develop it? Well, let's look at a checklist that successful innovators use as a framework.
This framework is basically a systematic path to get you from that initial spark to a real thing. It starts with searching for inspiration and documenting every idea. Then you develop a vision that balances how it looks and how it works. You absolutely have to research your market, you have to collaborate with other people, and then you model and test your designs relentlessly. Finally, you plan for the actual production, thinking about everything from resources to costs.
And that leads us to our final and maybe most crucial section.
We've gone from an idea to a tested prototype, but what actually makes the final product a high-quality one? Well, the answer isn't quite as simple as you might think.
You see, there are really two ways to look at quality. For the industry, it often just means, is it fit for its purpose? Does it meet all the technical specs on the sheet? But for the customer, quality is something more. It's about, does this exceed my expectations? Does it give me total satisfaction? A product can meet every single technical spec and still be a total failure if it doesn't actually satisfy the user.
So, how do you make sure you get that customer satisfaction part right? Dr. Leah Hiss, the designer of Facett, tells us exactly how. She used a human-centered approach. She didn't just sit in a lab and guess what users wanted. She spent real time with them to understand what it's actually like to depend on that technology every single day.
And this is where all that research really paid off. One of the single biggest frustrations for users, especially older people, was changing those tiny, fiddly little batteries. The innovative solution? A simple, intuitive magnetic connector. That is quality. It's not just a cool feature. It's a solution to a real human problem.
And that brings us right back to you. We've seen that creativity is a method, not magic, and that so many great ideas start by solving a simple problem. So I want you to think about your daily life. What frustrates you? What product just doesn't work right? Because that very frustration, that might just be the spark for your next great idea.